Okay. Good morning, students. Am I audible? Am I audible? Am I audible?
Yes, sir.
Okay, fine.
Yes,
So,
sir.
as I think we had completed our discussion on the third module, there is one part left in the third module, that is ground improvement technique. So I will be discussing after the fourth module. Okay. After the fourth module, we will be discussing the ground improvement technique. Otherwise, we have completed everything. The rock quality determination, rock structure rating, and the ground improvement is the one part that is being left out. Okay. After which we have discussed already the joints, structures, faults, folds, their influence on the engineering projects, dam, tunnels, slope treatment, and also your base tunnels, site investigations, coastlines, everything have been discussed. Okay, so from today we shall start our discussion on the fourth module. So the fourth module is the hydrogeology, that is the hydrology and geology which are being mixed together. Okay, both of them are very important. Both of them are interrelated to one another. Okay, both of them go side by side. That's why both of them play a very important role. So today we shall start our discussion on the hydrological cycle. Okay. 1 second. Okay, is the presentation visible? Is the presentation visible? Can everybody see the presentation? Any one of you unmute yourself and tell me whether the presentation is visible.
Yes, sir.
Okay, fine. So we shall start our discussion on the hydrological cycle. So what do you mean by hydrological cycle? So it is a cycle which is occurring continuously in the nature. Okay, the cyclic movement of the water from atmosphere to earth and from earth to the atmosphere is always called as a hydrological cycle. Okay, so it is a cyclic movement of the materials, that is the water, through the form of cycle. That is, it goes through different process. Water from the ponds, reservoirs, or the open wells gets evaporated. They get converted into gaseous matter. That is, liquid state is converted into gaseous state, and it then evaporates due to sunlight, and then they condenses together to form a cloud, and then it comes back to the earth in the form of rain. Okay, some part of the water is infiltrated, moves into the layers of the earth, by which the plants and animals utilize them. So all these are the cyclic movement of the water through different forms from one form to another form in the environment is called as a hydrological cycle. Bear in your mind that hydrological cycle is very important question. It may arise in your examination. Okay, it may come for 5 marks, 10 marks, or even for the 15 marks also. Okay, so the water cycle is also known as a hydrological cycle or the H2O cycle. So this is very important. Okay, so it is a one which describes the continuous movement of the water. Okay, it is a cycle which describes the continuous movement of the water below the surface of the earth, above the surface of the earth, and on the surface of the earth. So it occurs on the three layers of the earth also, above the surface of the earth, on the surface of the earth, and also in the below the surface of the earth. In all these three parts, this hydrological cycle is always a cyclic movement. Okay, so then what happens is water on the earth's surface, what happens is it occurs in the streams, lakes, wetlands, as well as on the oceans. Okay, so these are the three parts where you can observe the water. One is a stream. Streams are the open sources of water. Lakes are the open sources of water. Wetlands are the open sources of water. And also the rivers, they are also the open sources of the water. Okay, as well as the oceans, they also become a part of the open sources of the waters. Okay, so all these are the places where the water is available for evaporation. Okay, so surface water means it is all those parts which are included in the solid form of water. Also, snow and ice also part is of a surface water itself. This ice and the snow, they also become part of the solid water. That is the surface water. You know the Himalayas, they are always covered with ice. And the parts of the northern hemisphere, that is North Pole and South Pole, they are always covered with the ice. The Greenland, the Iceland, as well as the Antarctica, they are always covered with ice. But that doesn't mean it becomes another part. They become a part of the surface water itself, because that ice and other things and the snow are available on the surface of the earth itself, not below the surface of the earth. So that's why they also contribute to the running water, the perennial water. Okay, so that's why they become a surface water itself. Okay, and the water which occurs below the surface of the earth, the water which occurs below the surface of the earth is the groundwater, which includes the soil water. Okay, only that water which occurs below the surface of the earth is called as a groundwater, which includes the soil water. Okay, so coming to the components of the hydrological cycle, so these are the very important components of the hydrological cycle, which includes evaporation, condensation, precipitation, interception, infiltration, percolation, transpiration, runoff, storage, and evapotranspiration. So these are the very important components of the hydrological cycle. First of all, evaporation. So what do you mean by evaporation? So evaporation is a process where the physical state of the water is being converted from liquid form to the gaseous form. Okay, a liquid state to the gaseous state. The water is converted into liquid state to gaseous state, where there is under the action of heat. When there is sunlight, only during sunlight this evaporation can be expected. Okay, considerable amount of heat, about 600 calories of energy, is required for each gram of water to be exchanged or converted to change their states. Okay, so there is also evaporation that is caused by the human activities also. How? Heated buildings. Okay, heated buildings, what happens is, and during a very hot sunny day, you can expect all these things. Heated buildings, they experience evaporation on the water that is settled on its surfaces. You can see this on a hot sunny day, you can expect this evaporation to take place. Okay, evaporated moisture is lifted into the atmosphere from the ocean, land surfaces, and water bodies as water vapors. Okay, some vapor always exists in the atmosphere. Okay, there is small amount of vapor that always exists in the atmosphere, which is called as a humidity. Okay, solar radiation and also other factors also correspond to the air temperature. That is, air temperature, vapor pressure, wind, and atmospheric pressure also contribute to the evaporation. Okay, not only the heat, but also the solar radiation and other factors like air temperature, vapor pressure, wind. and the atmospheric pressure also contribute to the evaporation. Okay, you can see how exactly this evaporation occurs. Whenever the heat, that is energy from the sun, is directly landing on the water surface, the warm ocean surfaces, what happens is they start to get converted into the gaseous states, and the water vapor starts to rise. Okay, so what are the factors which affect the rate of evaporation? So temperature, as you know, temperature is very important factor which corresponds to the rate of evaporation. If temperature is very minimal, then the rate of evaporation is also very minimum. You cannot expect so much amount of the evaporation to take place. During your winter season, the rate of evaporation is very low when compared to the hot sunny season. Okay, in a hot sunny season, what happens is in during months of summer, you can expect more amount of evaporation because the sunlight will be more, heat and radiation is more. Okay, so but in the winter season, the rate of evaporation is relatively less because evaporation is directly proportional to the temperature of the evaporating surface. Okay, so temperature always plays a very important part in the rate of evaporation. Next is the relative humidity. You know, rate of evaporation is closely related to relative humidity of air because the moisture holding capacity of the air at a given temperature is limited. That is, drier air evaporates more than water than the moist air. Okay, if the humidity is very low, then what happens very high, then the air will be more drier. It has got more capacity to evaporate than the moist air. Okay, wind speed. Wind speed is also very important because the direction of the wind and the speed of the wind that blows is also very important because most of the times the wind also carries the water with it. Small drops of water is also known to be carried by the wind also. Okay, when the winds are light, a thin layer of the air just above the surface gets nearly saturated under the circumstances. The difference between the vapor pressure between ground and air is very small. So composition of water, so which is very important, another factor. See, salt water is capable of having more evaporation than the normal water because salt water can, any water which is very salty in nature tend to evaporate more, okay, rather than the normal water. Okay. If the water is very pure, then the heating levels of the water will be changed. The heating levels of the water will be changed. But if it is mostly of salty nature, then the molecules within the water system, chemical composition of water, intend to claim the chemical reaction and they make the water to boil very rapidly. So that's why composition of water also plays a very important role in the evaporation. So next is condensation. So condensation is, as you know, it is a process by which water vapor changes its physical state from vapor state to a liquid state. Okay. So condensation is the process where water vapor condenses onto small particles. The clouds, dew, and the fog are being formed. Okay. Dew is being formed, fog is being formed, or even the clouds is also being formed by the process of condensation. It is a process which occurs in the troposphere, okay, where the most of the meteorological activity, that is in the parts of stratosphere and the troposphere, you can expect this meteorological activities to take place. That is, water will never escape from the stratosphere level. Okay, it remains within the troposphere and the stratosphere. The water will always limits within themselves within the stratosphere and troposphere. Most of the meteorological activity occur in the stratosphere, that is one layer in the atmosphere. Okay, so that is, the stratosphere is the layer where most of the meteorological activity take place. The cloud forming process, the cloud building process, or the conversion of the water vapors into clouds, fog, dew, all of them take place in the stratosphere itself. Coming to the factors affecting the condensation, so there are two important ones. One is initiation, that is formation of molecular states or the clusters of the atomic particles, atomic or molecular clusters of the species within its gaseous volume, like a raindrop, high flake formation within the clouds, or contact between such gaseous phase and the solid and the liquid surfaces, all these things. And then there is formation of raindrops. Initially, there is no sudden formation of the cloud. Okay, only when the particles of the gaseous states which are combined together, they once they get evaporated, they become very pure water. Okay, there is no saturation of any particles within them. Okay, when there is no saturation of any particles within them, then they become very pure water. So pure water, as you know, is free of all the salts and the sugars contents within them. They are free of chemicals. So they take time to form the intermolecular and interatomic reactions to take place within them, and then there is formation of the raindrops. Okay, so coming to the precipitation, next is a precipitation which wherein the water condenses down the earth in the form of rainfall. Okay, so there are very different forms of precipitation. You can see all these are the forms of precipitation itself. Snow is a form of precipitation, rain is a form of precipitation, sleet, that is small droplets of the clouds falling down, is form of precipitation. Hail, that is your free your alakalum, they are also form of precipitation. Freezing rain, where the form freezes the water, they are also form of precipitation. See, these are the different types of the precipitations. Okay, so there are two important ones. Precipitation is a process wherein the water, they fall to the earth in any form. I do not want to mention here in only the form of rain, but they may reach the ground or the earth in any of the form. Okay, in either of the forms: snow, dew, fog, hail, sleet, thunderstorm, or even rain. All these are the very different forms of the precipitation. Okay, so it is that process where the water reaches the surface of the earth, or they reaches the ground surface. Okay, so there are two sub processes that causes the clouds to release the precipitation: the coalescence process and the ice crystal process. Okay, so there are two important types of precipitation. One is orographic precipitation, conventional precipitation, and the cyclonic precipitation. What is orographic precipitation? See, when warm moist air moving across the oceans, okay, moist air, they move across the ocean, is forced to rise by the larger mountains. Okay, as the air rises it cools. Okay, because whenever this is found near the mountainous regions. Okay, these are found near the mountainous regions because orography is a mountainous process itself. The warm waters or the warm winds or the warm airs, it rises the mountains, which is being obstructed in the mountains, it cools, and then precipitation takes place at that place itself. Conventional ones are the ones which are the air becomes lighter and rises rapidly into the atmosphere. Okay, they form the water vapor, and the water vapor then condenses into clouds and the precipitation takes place. This is common in types of all these things. The monsoon season rainfalls, which we can see in India, the northwestern monsoons are common for conventional precipitations. Cyclonic precipitations are the ones which are being seen now. You can see yesterday and day before yesterday there was rainfall in the parts of Shimoga and Bhadravati. That was because of the cyclone that has occurred in the Bay of Bengal. So any small amount of depression that occurs in the small amount of depression that occurs in your oceans causes the warm front and the cold front. There are two types of the air masses. One is a warm front and the other one is a cold front. Okay, both of them, that is warm moist air and the cool dry air. Okay, both of them meet together. The molecules of the cold air are tightly packed together, and the cold air becomes heavier and moves on top of the warm air, and warm air is forced to go up the cool air. So in that process you can see the air condenses and the clouds and the precipitation forms. Okay, so these are the different forms of the precipitations. So next is interception. What is interception? It is a process of the interruption that is caused for the movement of water. Okay, interception is a process where it is caused the interruption in the movement of water, which leads to streams. Okay, so even vegetation also takes place in the part in the interception. That is, the water should directly fall on the ground, but if it falls on the rooftop becomes the interceptors. That is, the stoppages or the blockages that is occurred when the movement of the water is being stopped, like a barrier, before it reaches the ground. Okay, even if some part of the rainfall may fall on the trees also. So trees act as a barriers. Trees act as a barrier for the water. Okay, percolation of the water. So infiltration is a process wherein the movement of the water takes place through the boundary area where the atmosphere interfaces the soil. So what happens is it is the movement of the rainwater into the through the layers of the soil to water form the water table or the groundwater. Okay, it is the movement on the percolation of the waters. Okay, what happens is all of the rainfall that falls on the ground has to reach some part of the water has to reach the water table and enrich the water table, which is called as a groundwater. Okay, without the enrichment of the groundwater, it is impossible for you to exploit the water from the ground in the form of bore wells and tube wells. So, if the amount of water that is reached through the layers of the earth has to reach the water table, then that water can be extracted in the form of rainwater or the tube water or the groundwater. Okay. So, it is that process where the water percolates through the fractures and the pores that is available within the soil and the layers of the earth and reach the groundwater table. Okay, so that is infiltration is a process which depends on the precipitation. That is, if too much amount of water, that is rainfall, precipitation, if you can example, if you consider 1 millimeter of rainfall over 1 hour of time, then the amount of water that can be percolated through the layers is more. Okay, if 10 centimeter of rainfall occurs over 15 minutes of time, then most of the water will not reach the ground levels. It cannot percolate through the layers of the earth. Rather than movement of the water will be very high in the form of runoff. Okay, if that 1 centimeter or 1 mm of rainfall occurs over 1 hour of time, then there is sufficient amount of the time that is required for the water to percolate through the layers of the earth. Yeah, so that's why infiltration also plays a very important role. So coming to the factors that affect the infiltration process, moisture content, rainfall rates, and the layered soils. Okay, so these are the three very important factors which affect the infiltration process. So if the initially ground levels has got the moisture content within them, then the amount of water that can be percolated through the air will be comparatively less when you compare them to others. Okay, because if the soil is saturated earlier itself, then the saturation will take place very early and the water may not percolate through the layers. Next is the rates of the rainfall, as already stated. If 1 millimeter of rainfall occurs over 1 hour of time, then the amount that is required for the water to transfer or percolate through the layers is very low. You can expect more amount of water to percolate rather than the runoff. The layered solutions of the soils also plays a very important role. Okay, if it is mostly of the granitic terrain, then the water that can be holded within or percolated through the layers is very less. Coming to transpiration, the transpiration is that process which is a biological process which is being tended by the plants. Okay, so the water is no, it is being present in the leaves. The water get evaporated through the leaves that is present in the pores. Okay, so you know what leaves contain some pores within them at the bottom of the leaves. They get some pores through which the water escapes. So that process is called as a transpiration. So it also contributes to the evaporation itself. The combination of both the evaporation and transpiration is called as a evapotranspiration. So what are the very important factors that affect the transpiration is the light. Only during the sunlight, the stomata of the leaves opens, and the opening of the stomata, the interior layers of the leaf are exposed to the outer atmosphere, wherein the uh, wind is acting on the stomata and the water is being removed. Okay, wind is also a very important factor. Temperature, humidity of the air, and the water supply also plays a very important factor, because if there is deficiency of water in the soil itself, then the rate of transpiration also decreases. Okay, because the water cannot be absorbed by the soil, and henceforth the plant also doesn't get the amount of soil water that is required for its growth. When water is not required for its growth, then obviously the water the transpiration also decreases. Next is runoff. The water is that is runoff is the flow of water from the excess streams or watershed or the drainage basins. Okay. So there are three important types, that is surface flow, interflow, and base flow. Surface flow is the one which remains on the surfaces and moves on the overland. Interflow is the one that has entered the upper layers of soil profile, that is between O horizon and A horizon, and laterally through the soil profile and reappears at the surface. Okay. Base flow is the one which is very bottommost and which is very common in the groundwaters, and it appears usually in the groundwater table itself. So these are the intensity, rainfall duration intensity is also very important contributor to the runoff. Okay, season of the year, meteorological conditions, soil moisture, soil type, and topographical characteristics also plays a very important role in the runoff. Storage is the one where it is very important surface where is the storage of the water occurs in the ground. Whether it may be the water stored in atmosphere, it may be stored at the surface of the earth or the ground level. So it is the water which has percolated should be stored somewhere. Okay, so that water which is being collected in form of ponds, lakes, reservoirs, even the dams, anything like that, or the oceans, they are called as the storage houses, wherein the water is being collected together. Okay, so this is something about the combination of both evaporation and transpiration is called as evapotranspiration. For the hydrological cycle, if you have got any questions, you can ask me now. You raise your hand, you can ask a question. If anybody has got any questions, you can ask me now. No questions. If anybody has got any questions, then drop in your attendance. We should continue our discussion next class.